everyone. Welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. This is Deb, and I have a very special guest, Trisha Wolfe, with us tonight. Trish is a USA Today bestselling dark academia romance and psychological thriller author, not actor. From an early age, Trish has dreamed up imaginary worlds and characters and was accused of talking to herself. Today, she lives in South Carolina with her family and writes full-time, using her imaginary worlds as an excuse to continue to talk to herself. Welcome to the podcast, Trisha.
Hi, Deb. Thank you guys so much for having me.
We met last year at a book festival, and I have to say that I read the entire trilogy that just came out.
The Hollows Road trilogy.
Hollows Road trilogy. And I have to say, the whole time, I'm like, how is this going to come together? And why is this guy so hot, even though he's not supposed to be hot? And then at the end, I was like, okay, I get it. But it was really weird because it was one of those dark thrillers where I'm like at the beginning, and I think part of it for me was the narrator's voice because I listened to them and I was like, how is this guy doing this to me when he's supposed to be a serial killer? So it just was a really, really wonderful read for me. And I just wanted to tell you congratulations on finishing that trilogy.
Thank you so much. It has been the hardest thing that I've ever written to date, except for what I'm currently writing. So there's that.
It just set you up to make the next one harder.
It really kind of did. I figured, once I got this one out of my system, these are the books of my heart, finally. I'm like, I can go back and just write something easier now. But my brain wouldn't let me do that. So I'm sitting here every single day losing more hair now.
Oh, my gosh. I can understand that. Well, it's been about a year since we've spoken. Can you tell us a little bit about 2024 and what you've been up to besides, writing that book? Or has that been your entire year since we've seen you last?
Well, yeah, no. 2024 was a year. I don't know how else to say that. There was great things, amazing things. I think one of the most amazing things that I got to experience was the completion of this trilogy, which was the books of my heart, and then very nervously, anxiously releasing it to readers that had been so patiently, wonderfully waiting for the conclusion. I have to say that, first of all, I have the best readership in the world. They're always like, don't worry about it. Take your time.
They're
just great. They just, want me to get through it sane, I guess.
Right.
And so I was anxious to give them that book that they very patiently waited for. But I will say we're very happy with the outcome and they loved it. And the best thing that happened to me was receiving messages from them, emails from them, and the ink. They took words from the book. They took images and created their own artwork out of it and inked it right on their body. And I just remember for about 3 months, I was just like pouring tears, like seeing all these beautiful artwork and tattoos. So that was probably the highlight of the year for me. And then I have not been working just on Lovesick this whole time. It's taken up a lot of my time, but I put off, in order to complete this trilogy, I put off so many things that I'm like, I'll get to it eventually. So I've been editing, I've been reworking and re-editing a lot of books to put them into audio. One of them just released this year, which was my Mafia duet. Mm-hmm. And those just got released into audio for the first time. And I'm also working on more backlist books to revamp those and put those into audio. So there's a lot of that going on. And then, shop stuff, just all kinds of stuff, foreign deals in the process that I've been putting off, trying to get. There's a lot of moving parts all the time that nobody sees.
Right, exactly. Well, and especially, I think nowadays authors are told to market themselves all the time. So then you're marketing yourselves, you're marketing the narrators, and then you do have readers going, when's the book? When's the book? And we've said a million times on this podcast, just chill out and let the writers write, because there wasn't really that big of a gap in between your books when it really comes down to it, right? We sometimes, have waited 5 years for a sequel of books. And so I think that sometimes as a reader, we just have to go, we love this author and we respect the boundary that they have. And especially for the Hollow Rose trilogy, that there was a lot of psychological horror in that and a lot of mythology in that. And if it had been just slapped together at the end, readers would have been unhappy and you would have been unhappy. And so we have to give you the time that you need to finish, right?
Exactly. I think that there was roughly 10 to 11 months between book 2 and book 3. And for me, that's a long time writing a book. And I know in the market that we have now that with this rapid release, which I admire authors so much that can just bang these books out. 'Cause I'm like, how do you guys do that and keep any kind of shred of sanity? Because it's hard. No matter what you're writing a book, period, is hard.
100%.
It's a lot of work, mentally, physically. This one, it was the most challenging book that I've written just because it wouldn't end. It closed out around close to 87,000 words. For me, is a very long book, but you're right. The research that had to go into it, I wanted to make sure that I tied up all the loose ends through books 1, 2, and 3. That way, if readers wanted to go back, it's written in a way that Callum, of course, made me write it, where 3 is the magic number, and you can read the book kind of like in a circle over and over and over again. So it all connects and interweaves. So that way, every time a reader rereads the series, I want them feeling in a way that if they love it enough, they can continue to reread it. And every time that they do, they pick up something new along the way.
100%. 100%. And I think there is a lot of pressure on any author that writes any level of spice to like bang, bang, bang them out. Because I think when you're put into the romance subgenre, like people are expecting a really fast release. But I would say that some of your books hover even more on like the more fantasy, like mythological side of things. And those just can't be banged out in the same way that, you know, like a meet cute can. Not that they're not equally as hard to write, but like you said, there's just so much research that has to be done to make it happen.
Thank you for saying so. I appreciate that. I mean, honestly, I think that every book is hard and difficult in its own way. Like my mafia books, they're not as intricate with the background, but they're challenging for me in a way where I have a hard time, believe it or not, with the romance aspect. Like when I'm first writing a book, I focus very heavily on the plot, on the background stuff, tying all those elements together. And it's almost like if you read the first draft of my book, it would literally be like little stick figures.
Aren't you the one that has a keyword that you type in when there's supposed to be a sex scene there so you can find it later?
I think a lot of authors do that. Yeah. I just put something. If my word is something.
Right. Yeah. The sex scene right here. This will happen later. Right.
It's woven all through my book. If I'm writing a paragraph and I'm like, I know eventually something's going to go here. I don't know what. I'll come back to it. I will literally just type something. And so if you like in the lovesick draft right now, if you typed search something, there'll probably be like 1,500 of them.
That's so funny. Well, I know sometimes you become more of a pantser. Like you have a plot, but I know you kind of pant your way through your books too. And so you have to have something that you're going back to remind you that something isn't wrapped up, right?
Right. And because I do so much weaving with the plot and with the characters and everything, if I completely write out a whole chapter 1, 2, or 3, what ends up happening is once I get to the very end of the book, there's so many different elements that I need to go back and layer in. So I'm weaving that mysteries, little clues and Easter eggs along the way. Those chapters would end up being like 10,000 words long. So I can't really fill them up right at the beginning. I just have to make sure that I have the structure there and that I know what's going on and it's woven enough. So when I come back around, I'll be like, oh yes, this is what needs to go there now. I really like to have everything that just ties up so tight together that it just, I don't know, when I'm reading a book or watching a story or doing anything, like I want to feel the tension all the way through. Like if I'm writing a scene and I'm dreading it and I hate it and I'm bored to death, then readers are too. You know? So if there's something like that and I feel like it's just not working, I'm like, you have to go. No matter how painful it is, you got to go.
It's hard too when you're a creator to like let go of something you created at the same time, right? You were this person I really loved or this scene I really loved, but you got to go, right? So speaking of scenes that you love, your Instagram bio actually says that you write serial killers, which is a really specific subgenre of dark romance. It's gotten, I think like the comedic side of that has gotten more popular over the years, but I think, you know, writing the subgenre of dark romance, psychological thrillers, like what led you to that type of story? Because I know last year when we saw you in person, there was a lot of jokes about like the super sweet face that you have and you write these super dark books. So what led you to this?
I mean, honestly, I've always been fascinated by it. Well, first of all, Criminal Minds, one of my favorite shows ever. Hannibal Lecter. I have like, these are, the fiction side of it that I'm obsessed with. I'm obsessed with mysteries, with thrillers, the whodunit of things. I know a lot of people didn't like, well, I think it was half and half for the new season of You, the latest one, where they're like, oh, that was more of a whodunit. And they're like, I'm like, I'm living for this. Like, it's everything. I'm like, you take one of my favorite, serial killers, fictional serial killers, and, a whodunit plot and put that together. Oh my God, I was living for that season. So I can't wait. I'm very excited. Can you tell? For the new season? I
was going to ask, do you read much into like real true crime drama, or do you keep what you like to absorb purely fictional?
I do. I would have to say that earlier on in my career, I was very focused very heavily in the psychology of psychopaths. I did a lot of research with like Rustler and with the FBI about how they did their interviews with Ted Bundy. And it was very just intriguing to me to see how they just profiled these killers and how they got into the mind of the killer. And I think that that's what I focused on heavily when I was writing the With Visions of Red series and with Born Darkly and Born Madly. I was very fascinated with that. But I do feel like as artists, as creators, once we've done something, it's not to say that we don't enjoy that thing. It just is, we kind of grow and grow and grow. And that's eventually how it kind of morphed into eventually writing something like the Hollows Rose series, where I feel like, well, I've already touched on all these topics with the psychology with psychopaths. I want to expand on that. I want to take that plot a little bit deeper and go wider with it. And I thought, wow, I just have this great idea for, let's go into philosophy. I did not know what I was getting myself into.
You got yourself in there pretty deep, I gotta say, in a good way.
I am not the same person. I admit, when I was, studying about psychology and psychopaths, and I was very, very much into the mindset of things, I found that so fascinating. And I loved delving into that. And then when I tried to combine and I wanted to weave that with philosophy, especially esotericism, there is a plethora of information when you're going back 5,000 years of researching that honestly, like, I have to admit, like, it changed me, a lot of my views on things. I learned things that I never knew. And I even remember looking up and I'm like, how does nobody know this? Like, nobody's talking about this. Like, everybody in everyday life they should know this. But I'm calmed down from that now.
Well, I'm going to have to message you separately and find out what that was, because I wonder if it's something that I've been like the same way. And the reason I'd asked that question is, I personally love a lot of body gore and horror and I love these type of serial killer books, but I generally can't watch the real thing. I don't watch true crime documentaries. I don't do any of that. And my husband will laugh about it. And I'm like, because those things actually happened. Right? In real life, those happened. Like Callum in your books is a fictional character who is a multifaceted, multi-layered man, right? And, I don't feel like this is a spoiler, but he's really not the only bad guy in the book, right? There's a lot of bad guys in this book. And so, what I love about the psychology behind it is every person has like their own things that they're going through that essentially like they can choose to go into that darkness or they can really fight against it. And so there's a lot of push and pull and play in every single character in that book that I really loved.
While I enjoy the documentary like on Jeffrey Dahmer or something, I think that there's a little bit difference about being fascinated about the mindset and trying to understand something and idolizing that. So I do have very clear, where I'm not like admiring something. So I feel like I don't try to bring that aspect into it. I think that with my books, I focus more on the human element where we're not exactly black and white. Most of us live in the gray. As human beings, it's very easy to say, oh, well, this is right and this is wrong. And it's like, well, you think that until you've been tested. Nobody really knows what they're going to do until they're put into a situation. And that's what I like to explore with my characters, is putting them right on that fringe, right on that boundary, where it takes them to a place with emotional pain, trauma, all these different things that just really test those characters to see what we are capable of. And then with my male characters, where typically, yes, they tend to be not so great. They live in the morally gray or the morally black even. The thing about it is they will do anything to protect the people that they love and care for. Just like Callum did. Everything that we find out that he did through that series was for his love for Halen.
Right, right. And did you watch The Walking Dead? I'm curious to know if you like that show or not.
I think I did. I watched it probably longer than I probably should have.
Well, the reason I ask is because that show bothered me because it was not about zombies. It was about the human condition and the really fucked up things that we will do to each other if we're put to the test of like me living or Trisha Wolfe living, right? Like, who am I going to fight for in this dystopian? And it really resonates with what you said on like, you don't know how you're going to react until you're put into a situation that's not like strawberries and whipped cream, right? Like it's not like your rainbow life that you have every day. You just don't know how you're going to react. Right.
Exactly. No. Yep. I think I watched Walking Dead up through season, I want to say, I think 8 maybe or so. I can't remember.
There were like 20 of them. So
yeah, exactly. Like I watched it up through something, but I kind of do cheer on the villains. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. When they're fictional villains, I will cheer them on because I think that they do the things that other people don't dare to do. Right. I mean, I hate to say it, when it comes to a situation like that, just like with my characters, they're kind of the villains, you know, in the story, but a villain feels justified in doing what they're doing because they're doing it for the right reasons. Right.
Or at least they think it's the right reason.
I'll just admit I cheered on the villains.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the romance in your books. So is there a specific book or an author that inspired you to write the way that you do?
Yes, very early on, Anne Rice. I have always
she's my favorite of all time.
She inspired so many writers, yes. And it was Interview with a Vampire. Mm-hmm. I was 14 years old, and I probably had no business at that age reading it, but I read everything. But it wasn't until I read that book, and I just remember putting it down, and I just kind of looked up, and I'm like, I was feeling that I feel right now. And I have spent my whole life trying to do that.
Right. Yeah, she was an amazing author. My gosh. So is there a favorite trope that you like to use in your books, or is there a trope that you like to use and put your own twist on?
Well, of course, I love enemies to lovers because honestly, the tension, it gets me. Like I love enemies to lovers. But going a little bit further into that, I think what I really discovered, especially with the Hollis Rose series, is I really love that omniscient background character that is doing everything in the background for the other character, and we don't realize that at the time, if that makes sense. I don't really know what to call that trope, but it's kind of the Callum character I'm gonna
So what trope do you just avoid at all costs in your books? What do you refuse to use?
Cheating.
Oh gosh, yeah. I hear that. Yeah, that's not for me either.
I'm not knocking anybody that writes it or that reads it. To each their own. Just for me, especially when I'm writing a romance, that's a world that I'm going to be living in for a very long time with those characters. It's something that I don't want to experience in my fictional world because of that. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, not to anybody else, we're all different, but it's just that's my world where I go to disappear. So.
Right, 100%. And I guess you can't really write a character that you hate, right? Like if you hate this person.
Yeah, for me with my characters, as soon as the male character sees the female character, that's it. Right. She's endgame immediately. Right. There's nobody else he even looks at on screen.
Oh,
done.
I love that. Well, what can you tell us?
I'm like a hardcore romantic when it comes to that aspect.
When it comes to the romance side, right? So what can you tell us about Lovesick? You said that you're in the middle of writing it right now. We know it's a dark adaptation. So can you tell our listeners a little bit more about this? Is it going to be a series or a standalone, and what is it about?
Right now, it's slated to be a duet, just because I don't know if I could put myself through another 3 books. God, I hope, please. Right now, I'm currently sitting at 55,000 words. Typically for me, the first in a series is between 65, 70,000 words, but I fear that this one's going to be much longer already. It just seems to be what's happening with my books lately, but it's fine. We all grow and we just have to deal with it. This is a little bit different. It took me a long time to kind of get into this because there was a lot of separation anxiety that I felt from Halen and Callum coming away from them. So I even got to points where I'm like, I'm never going to write a book again. Like I can't fall in love with characters the way I fell in love with them. But through the process, that has been very painful building them. So it centers around Collins Holbrook. And I will say that we come on scene with her, and she is a VICAP agent. She's working for VICAP, which is along the lines of like the FBI, but they run like the largest database for criminal offenders, right?
Cool. Mm-hmm.
And she is hunting a very specific serial killer. So we come on scene right there at home. Readers are going to be like, oh, I know what's going to. But then it very quickly flips. We go straight into a very dark academia setting that takes place at a university with this character going undercover. Okay. So, and she is there because she is hunting a very specific serial killer, and she believes that killer to be Dr. Orion Knight, who is an astrophysicist at Stonehurst. Oh my God, I can't pronounce my own name. Stonehurst University.
And so does it have a little bit of professor student vibes going on in it too? Does she come in as a student?
Not so much, because the characters are very much adult. She actually comes on screen undercover type-ish, where she works in staff counseling.
Oh, cool.
So
okay.
she comes on scene, quote unquote, kind of like a staff guidance counselor psychologist type, because there's in academia, you have this very stressful, competitive atmosphere.
Right.
Dr. Orion Knight has just had a incident and is required to do mandatory sessions. And that's where they kind of come together on screen, where it seems like this is all the stuff that's going on right on top, surface level. There's so much more underneath, because he is a serial killer. I will just say that's not spoiling it. I know in Hollow's Row, we kind of went in thinking with Callum, like, is he, isn't he? He very much is. Orion very much is. He's got some dark nature going on. And he's just, he's a different character for me. He really tests me. He's got this affinity for adrenaline where he's always trying to push himself to get outside of his own mind. Right when we meet him, in order to accomplish something, and I won't give that away, my man jumps right off the side of the observatory. Like he just dives straight off. So he's always pushing himself in order to get out of his own headspace. And for the first time ever, I have a little bit of OCD rep. I think, well, it might not be the first time, but for the first time I've ever talked about it so heavily. I myself have OCD.
Okay.
And is that something that I talk with my readers, like in my group, they know this about me. And it kind of just worked. It wasn't something that I did on purpose when I worked that in with him. It just kind of happened naturally with his character as I was building his backstory and his arc. And I think one of the reasons that it's been so difficult working with him is because he's constantly starting over with his rituals and routines, which makes me constantly start over. So we're constantly starting over all the time with each other.
Right, right. Well, and I really love, though, that she comes in not as a student, because it sounds like he needs his academic equal almost. Like he wouldn't really respect a woman who isn't already far in her career, can handle the conversation he's going to bring to the table. Right. And so I actually really love that it's not a student. And, you know, I definitely like those books too. Don't get me wrong, but I like that she's coming in as someone who can, you know, essentially call him on his bullshit, because I'm sure she does, right?
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, not that I don't have anything against, like, yes, like I love the student teacher dynamics too. And I do have younger characters that I write, especially in my Mafia series. But for this story, like the female character, she needed to have a certain life experience. Right. And I feel that, you know, I myself, I'm 45 years old, you know, so I have, you know, some life experience. Right. And so when I'm writing my female characters too, at this point, like, I just feel like, a lot of them have to have a certain amount of life experience. Not to say that we can't have, okay, by the age of 18, I had a lot of life experience too. Okay.
Right.
Not saying any of that.
There is a maturation level that comes chemically, right? At a certain point, your brain is not actually developed enough to handle certain things.
Yeah. Well, she had to have a certain achievement in her own career. And I will just say this about Collins too. She has a very dark side. She goes into this revenge motivated.
Ooh.
So that's something that we see develop over the course of the story with her. I mean, we know right off in like the first chapter with her that she's got some revenge. She's got some motivation going on behind the scenes. We just don't know what it is yet. But I think that darkness uncoils within her every chapter that we see that go along with her. And I think that for her, this revenge, it definitely had to have a lot of life story to go along with that.
Right. Right. So what is your projected publication date? Or do you have one yet?
That's a great question. Let's see. I am hoping that I can get it out by the spring. My original plan was to do for winter, but I don't think that that's feasible because I'm actually editing 4 books right now for audio.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a
Yeah, so
lot.
I just got done editing the Mafia series for audio, and now I'm editing 4 books for audio. So I'm like, wow. So I'm trying to write this book, edit 4 books for audio, and I work a day job too. So there's
Oh
only
my gosh. I didn't
to go
realize you
around.
also worked a job outside of writing. That is a lot. That is a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah,
So
it's a lot. Yeah, and I spend a lot of the time, I'm a very slow writer, so I average around 500 words a day on a good day. And then I wake up the next day and I delete them and I start again. And
it's really inspiring to hear someone who writes amazing books like you do say, like 500 words a day is fine. Like
you
do what
can
you
write a whole
can.
book with 500 words a day. Like that's how I do it. That's my average word count. If you add that up, you can write a whole book in less than a year.
Let's go into our nerdy and dirty speed round. So these are just some questions for you, and I want you to answer with the first thing that pops into your head, okay? Which sometimes is really hard for authors to do. So just give me like your gut answer, okay? Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
ready.
If you were going to be stranded in the mountains with one of your main characters, who would you choose?
Oh my God, if I don't say Callum, he will never let me go.
I was about to say he's pretty resourceful, so he's a pretty good one.
I
So
feel safe with Callum. I know that he would do anything and everything to make sure that I would be okay. So
as
I'm
well,
going to have to go with Callum.
if you had to choose between mafia romance and billionaire romance as a reader, which would you choose?
Mafia romance.
Why is
I
that?
got the darkness. I have to have the darkness. I love actually mafia romance is my go-to genre. While I'm working on something, doing anything, like I inhale mafia romances, and it is just because of that the cockiness with the guy, just the assurance, just like that does it for me every single time.
There's a lot of mafia romance that also has like the money aspect too, though, right? They have to be able to fund these ventures somehow. So they
Yeah.
kind of go together.
No,
Yeah.
they get it through crime. It's cool, but
Right.
so
Yeah.
most billionaires, it's all
Right.
good.
Very true. Who is your fictional character crush?
I would have to say Luke from The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue.
Oh my gosh, right.
Have you read that?
So I listened to that and
Oh
the
yeah,
new
the audiobook's great. I
oh
listened to it too.
yeah. And they make Luke sound amazing. But yeah, he and I also love Addie a lot too, because again, she is his intellectual equal. And yeah, and I think he
Oh, the
could.
banter between them, the tension, it left me wanting more.
What personality quirk do you have that might surprise your readers?
Probably nothing at this point. I mean, they know I'm very open with them. They know that I'm OCD and I have a lot of weird things. They know that I talk to walls and it's not even a joke. I spend all day long talking to my walls and doing weird things. So probably nothing.
So it doesn't sound like you have very many days off, but if you do take a day off, what do you do with your time?
I just want to write and read.
I
So,
love that. I love
yeah.
that your hobby is something that you also really like to do that also is lucrative. That's
Yeah, at
wonderful.
this point, it's just kind of like it's an obsession. So I think that like I can write characters with obsession so well because I'm very obsessive myself. So if I'm writing something, I'm in it 100%. When I'm taking a shower, I on the side of my shower wall, like, oh my God, I have to get this down. So I will literally be scribbling on the side of the shower with my finger, like, and then I'll like take a picture of it. Then I'll run downstairs and try to like transcribe it. I probably shouldn't have told you that
That
much
might be
because
that
that's
might be
scary, but
the coolest writing quirk that I've heard yet. That you write it in the
oh,
steam
I
and
guess that
shower.
is a quirk then. Okay.
If you could switch lives with one of your characters for a day, who would you choose?
That would have to be probably Halen, because if I don't say that I get to spend that time with Callum, then he will haunt me. This man will never leave me alone. So I got a thing for him. But in all fairness, here's the thing. When I wrote that series, I threw the kitchen sink at that man. Okay. I think that a lot of writers, we have little attributes, aspects, our favorite things that we hold back, right? Because we don't want to give one character all the things. We keep holding it back for something, right? When it came to writing the books of my heart, I gave Callum everything. All my favorites, he got it.
Who is your like comfort character and what is your comfort read?
Yeah, so that would probably be Strangely Gone Girl. I love that book. Every time I read it, I'm still always surprised by the twists and turns, the monologues, the characterization. I love getting lost in that story, and also the life of Addie LaRue. I'm really bad at pronouncing everything. Names, I'm horrible. I butcher everything. But I feel like with the length of that story, I can just pick up a section of it and start reading and just get swept away right away.
Yeah.
In the writing, Victoria's writing, it's amazing. So I can get lost at any part that I picked up that story.
Well, so where can your, new readers, hopefully that you get from this interview and our listeners, where can they connect with you? Where do you like to have your readers speak with you?
Well, I'm hoping that we get to hang on to TikTok. I've been I know. I've been protesting all week, so making calls to my representatives and, fighting the fight. So I hope that we get to keep it. Otherwise, I am still on Instagram
Mhm.
and I'm on Threads. I'm on everywhere.
Where is your readers group? What platform is that
It's on Facebook and it's called Little Monsters.
Little Monsters. Okay, great.
Mhm.
I need to join that because I have some questions about Callum. And where do you prefer that our listeners purchase your books? Do you like them to purchase straight from you or from Amazon, or what's best for you as an author?
Whatever works best for the reader. I have it kind of set up in a way. Right now my books are on Amazon and they are all in Kindle Unlimited because I want them to have a easy way to access them. But I do have my audiobooks wide. So that way, if they don't have Kindle or Kindle Unlimited, they can get them from they can get them from Audible, Spotify. I think there's Hoopla, the library. So that way they have a way to access something wide also. And then I also carry all my audiobooks and print copies on my website, on my own shop site.
One thing that we always do at the end of our podcast is, it's called Our Nerdiest Thing. So we always talk about what our nerdiest thing of the week is. It can be something we read, it can be a game we played, it can be something that we did in public. So I would love to know what your nerdiest thing of the week is.
Does calling my reps and be really, really annoying about saving TikTok count?
100%. 100% that counts. And that's so great that you're doing that because you're using your voice in the right way, right? And trying to get them to understand how important this is for people. I've been really worried about the monetization for some people. This is their career. And so I've really been wondering where that's going to go. So that's definitely a wonderful nerdy thing.
Oh, there's been so many people that's been impacted by. I won't even get into that because I spent the past few days telling all my reps and just driving them crazy.
We'll continue doing it. Hopefully
But
it'll work.
yeah, I mean, it's a place that, first and foremost, Book Talk is a community.
Mhm.
Okay. It's a found
Right.
family for readers. There are some readers there that don't have anybody else to connect with, the way they can have found other people to connect with
Right.
talking about books that has developed into full-on friendships that has developed into family for people. So that's at the base of it, right? And then we have bookstores, independent bookstores going up all over
Mhm.
around book recommendations, around readers contributing their labor to promote books, to promote indie authors. I can never ever express how thankful I am to the book talkers and their love of reading for doing this. They changed my life over the past few years. So that's why I took out this week to do anything that I could to try to save that for them too, to save it for all of us, I hope.
Well, if you have any links or anything that you would love to share, if you want to send them to me when we're done, I'll post them in our stories so that way people know like where to go. Because I think some
Yes.
people, sure, you can call your reps, but like some people feel very
It
anxious
sounds so
doing
much
that.
more daunting than it is
Right.
just because people, they don't make it easy to find. But
Right.
you can go right to your house.gov or whatever website. But yes, I will send it to you. And all you got to do is plug in your zip code and it will give you the phone number right there. And it literally takes less than 2 minutes to make the call and talk to them.
Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It was wonderful to catch up, and I cannot wait to read this new book. And I'm going to be looking out for the Mafia audiobooks too, so I can listen to those.
Oh, thank you so much, Deb. I truly, truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.